So are you ready for some word today? Let's find Jesus together. The greatest thrill, honor, treat of my life is to try to reveal Jesus to people, to try to unveil the loveliness of Jesus. It's not a hard job to unveil the loveliness of Jesus. Sometimes the hardest thing is getting us out of the way, getting our stuff out of the way, getting our stress out of the way. Lay your cares down for just a few moments this morning. This is that holiday season, the time when we're all effort to do that anyhow. But we've shopped and we've ate and we've traveled and we've stressed. Take a deep breath today. Let's remember the reason why we do this is because we see Christ brought into the world, the arrival of God wrapped in human flesh. He takes upon himself the body of a man so that he can live out man's life on the earth, die, resurrect, ascend to his Father in the form that he sets in even today. In the presence of the Father is a resurrected Jesus. There's something to that shouldn't just be relegated to Christmas. I know. Unfortunately, we kind of do that. That's just the way life is. And so I don't want to miss the opportunity today to talk about that from a Christmas standpoint, even though I want to take it a little farther and a little deeper. How many of you have ever heard the statement or have been asked the question, have you found Jesus? That's Christian talk, right? Nobody says stuff like that outside of the church, really, or the realm of Christianity. We say, when did you find the Lord? Or have you found Jesus? And what we typically mean by that is some version of, have you been saved? Are you a disciple of Christ? Have you found Jesus? What does that mean to find Jesus? I'm always reminded of that moment in the movie Forrest Gump. Am I allowed to quote Forrest Gump from the pulpit? Well, here it comes. So when Lieutenant Dan rolls up in his wheelchair and says to Forrest, and Lieutenant Dan's irritated at the world. He's pretty mad at the circumstances life's thrown his way. And he says, every day somebody asks me, have you found Jesus? He said, what about you, Gump? Have you found Jesus? And Forrest says, I didn't know I was supposed to be looking for him. I love that answer. I used to think the same thing in church as a kid when people go, have you found Jesus? And I thought, I didn't know he was lost. We ought to be talking about this. This is a big issue. We've lost Jesus. How will we ever find him? And where would we look? So we know it's Christian talk to say to find Jesus. And what we really mean is, have you met the Lord? Maybe we mean something like, have you prayed a sinner's prayer? Have you invited Christ into your heart? Have you had a relationship with Jesus? But the true reality, I'm not mocking finding the statement, have you found Jesus, because we know what it means and it's absolutely a part of our core of what we mean when we come to Christ. But the real truth, and we all know this is, we don't have to find Jesus. Jesus found us because he's not lost, I am. And because I'm the one who is lost, he went to great effort this season, great effort to become a man to save all of mankind. And so really it was him finding me. I get the privilege and the joy of feeling like I found him, but the truth is he found me wherever I am. And if you have a testimony today, that's part of your testimony. He found me in my sin. He found me in my fallen, broken state, my pain, my stress, my failure. He found me in poverty. He found me in hunger. He found me in addiction. Where he found me, he didn't leave me. He picked me up. He walked out of that moment with me, but he always stayed with me. That's what we mean by finding Jesus. But if we're not careful, we'll just relegate that to the salvation experience. And so all we'll talk about is when I found Jesus, not my ongoing finding of Jesus. And so we'll make when I found Jesus my conversion moments. All we'll talk about is the day we, quote unquote, got saved. And that's great. If that's the only testimony you have about finding Jesus, share it. But how many of you realize that finding Jesus is the ongoing privilege of believers every time you open the Bible? Amen. Every time you get on your knees in prayer, every time you share the gospel with someone, every time you encounter someone on the street, if you're watching, you get a chance to find Jesus. And by finding Jesus here, I don't mean getting saved. You've already got that one taken care of. You are already the righteousness of God in Christ. You found Jesus and you won't lose him. You don't need to go find him again. But you do have the opportunity to find Jesus in the eyes of your neighbor. Find Jesus in the needs of the person across the street or the person you encounter at work. Because if he became a man, he became all men. Paul said to the Corinthians that we do no longer know Christ in the flesh like we used to. Well, that's a good thing, because if all we knew him in the flesh, we would know a guy in his early 30s of Mediterranean Hebrew descent who lived in the first century. And that'd be the only people that could identify with him. If you're his race, if you're his gender, if you're his age, if you lived in his time period. But because we don't go find Jesus in the flesh, I'm not on a hunt today to find Jesus in the flesh. Because we no longer know him in the flesh, we get the chance to find Jesus wherever we go. We get the chance to find Jesus not just in the scriptures, but on our journey. And Christmas teaches us that we will find Christ in the most unexpected places if we open our eyes. Because what we find is that it is a privilege to go find him, but to find him, we have to interact.